And welcome to this webinar, Making Tax Digital, What Small Businesses Need to Know. Thank you for joining our session today, which will be recorded and may be shared through FSB platforms once the recording has been checked and verified. The information shared with you today is valid at the time of recording. For the purposes of this webinar, if you wish to ask a question, please send your question to the Q&A. Our recording doesn't cover the Q&A area, and as such, no personal data is being shared. My name's Dion Sherwood. I'm an FSB South Wales area lead and also a chartered certified accountant in practice, and I'm your host this morning. Our speakers today are Govinda from Hmrc. She's the Making Tax Digital external stakeholder lead. We're also joined by Eugene Blaine, founder and CEO of Rhino Software, and Reese Marshall, who is also from Rhino Software, and Darren Park, who is the Senior Policy Advisor for the FSB. We have asked for questions to be submitted before the start of today's session, and we do have a few to cover in the Q&A section later on. However, we do recognise also that sometimes you don't know what to ask until you have a bit more information. So as I've already said, the Q&A panel is available for you to ask any other questions, and we will deal with as many of those in the live session as we possibly can. If there are any that we either cannot answer at the time, or we don't have time to get to, we can't give you a comprehensive answer in the time allotted, we will contact you after this webinar has concluded. So without further ado, I hand you over to Govinda from Hmrc.
Thank you, Dion. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thank you to FSB for inviting me to come and share some overview about Making Tax Digital. Okay, so I'm Govinda Sambi, and as Dion said, I work for the External Engagement Lead at Hmrc in the Making Tax Digital programme. And principally my job role is really to look at end business customers, those that are going to be impacted by Making Tax Digital, and specifically to also look at those that might need additional support to actually take part on that. So let's start with Making Tax Digital and a bit of an overview, really. So why are we doing Making Tax Digital? Increasingly, businesses and agents see the benefits of digitalisation, and millions of businesses are already banking, paying bills and interacting with their customers or suppliers online, and many are already using accounting software. And Hmrc's ambition is to become one of the most digitally advanced tax administrations in the world, and Mtd programme is making a fundamental change to the way that the tax system works, and transforming tax administration so that it's more efficient, more effective and easier for taxpayers and their agents to get their tax right. The move to digital integration will eliminate many of the existing paper-based processes, reducing errors and allowing businesses and their agents to devote more time to running their business. And many businesses will use an agent, and Mtd allows agents to continue to provide a full service in supporting their clients. So moving to the right-hand side of the screen there, so the progress that we've made so far, especially around Mtd for VAT, and these are the things that we've found out. So there's been over 1.5 million sign-ups for Mtd for that, and we've had over 13 million returns made successfully through Mtd for VAT. There are over 44% of non-mandated businesses who have recognised some of the advantages that can be had with Mtd, and they've already signed up to and submitted VAT returns voluntarily. There's a wide variety of Mtd for VAT software products that are on offer for businesses, and currently we have over 500. And businesses can use bridging software products and continue to use spreadsheets or older software products that meet Mtd requirements. So moving on to the Mtd timeline and some of our future deadlines. So far, in April 2019, we've had the start of Mtd. which was launched, and all VAT-registered businesses with an annual turnover of £85,000 were asked to sign up to Mtd for that. And then in April 2020, we announced that all remaining VAT-registered businesses must also sign up to Mtd. In September 2021, last year, regulations were laid for the Making Tax Digital for income tax, stating that customers will need to also be required to submit quarterly returns from April 2024. And then two of our main highlights are the upcoming VAT mandation from April 2022, where all remaining VAT-registered businesses, regardless of the annual turnover, will be asked to sign up to Mtd for that. And then going forward a couple of years ahead, so in April 2024, all unincorporated or self-employed businesses and landlords with an annual turnover or property income, or a combination of the two, that's above £10,000 must also sign up to Mtd for income tax. Again, just a reminder, that's in 2024. Now, as you can see from this slide here, it's a breakdown of the Mtd ITSA population. The total population, as it says there, is 4.7 million, so impacting a huge number of businesses and individuals, of which we have 3 million sole traders and 1.3 million property or landlord businesses. And as you can see, highlighted on the right-hand side there, that from April 2025, general partnerships coming to Mtd for ITSA, and they make up around 6% of the total ITSA population. And such partnerships are where there's only individuals as a partner, or all partners are jointly liable without limits for partnership debt, and they will be joining from April 2025, so 1 year after sole traders and landlords, who will be joining in April 2024. Hmrc recognises that the transition to Making Tax Digital for some businesses will be a huge change and to the way that they're currently operating. And to support that transition, Hmrc has a variety of support available in communications and in product channels to help businesses embrace the requirements for Mtd and prepare themselves ahead of mandation. So some of those are that we're going to write out and email individual customers. We're going to be looking at using social media to raise awareness of Mtd. We have guidance on gov.uk pages, giving step-by-step guidance for businesses and agents to become familiar with what to do for them and themselves and their clients, and is supported by issuing something called our agent updates, and which you can sign up to through gov.uk. We also have a number of YouTube videos, which are tutorials. We have written case studies, and we run regular webinars to go through the process of for businesses and for agents. And anyone can join, just look for them on gov.uk. And like today's event, we engage with representative bodies and other organisations to help raise awareness of Making Tax Digital. So moving on to what does this mean? What are the key stages and what are the key steps? So as you can see from the slides, there's three main steps for business and landlords who join Mtd. They'll need to prepare, and these are often referred to as regulation requirements. So firstly, they will need to keep records of business income and expenses in a digital format. They will need to also submit and send quarterly summaries of their business income and expenses to Hmrc using Mtd compatible software. And in response to this, they will receive an estimated tax calculation based on the information provided to help them budget for their tax by the end of the year. And finally, at the end of that particular year, businesses can add any non-business information and finalise their business income via something called an end of period statement. And again, using this through Mtd compatible software. All these steps replace the need for a self-assessment tax return. The deadlines for finalising tax affairs and making payments are not changing for either Mtd or for VAT and ITSA, so income tax self-assessment. And we believe that software that is currently available and that software that's being currently developed will help businesses to achieve these requirements. So there will be a lot of choices available. And when we refer to Mtd compatible software, we mean software that can integrate with Hmrc systems to send updates to Hmrc. We're working closely with software developers to produce products that will bring options to the market. And the benefits of this approach is that commercial software developers can offer a more flexible and tailored range of options, including functionality and technical support that can cater not to just joining and meeting the requirements for the general business population, but also specific businesses and sectors like agriculture, construction, landlords, and freelancers. So software developers will bring all those products to the market. So drawing to an end here, some questions that I would ask you is that, are you ready? Do you have a plan to get ready? Do you have Mtd software? And do you have digital records in place? Thank you for listening. I'm now going to hand back to Diane.
Thank you, Govinda. And now I'm going to invite Rhys to go through the presentation for Rhino software. Rhys.
Well, just to reiterate Dion's opening remarks, a big thank you to everybody that's joined today. I can see we're over the 100 participation, which is absolutely fantastic. And as a quick introduction, my name is Rhys Marshall. I'm product consultant for Rhino, and also joined by Eugene Blaine, who is the CEO of Rhino. So, and I think that was a good segue that Govinda just mentioned there, is do you have software that is MTD compliant? Because that really is the key to MTD. It's probably the biggest change. So as we know, businesses will now have to use third-party software to perform their digital record keeping, to submit both their VAT return and also the new quarterly income tax returns that are coming. So, and there was a really good article in FSB's First Voice that came out this week. Hopefully you had a chance to see it, but basically it was titled, which I think was really aptly titled, was MTD Blessing or Curse. I think it was fantastic, because I mean what that title was trying to say is that some businesses see MTD as not giving any efficiency gains whatsoever. But at Rhino, we see that completely different. We really do think that if you've got the right software, that it should be able to not obviously only submit your MTD returns, but also should be able to run your business efficiently. So what I plan to do over the next 15 minutes, hopefully, is actually just demonstrate, well, how easy it is to sign up to MTD, because there could be people out there that haven't actually signed up yet. But also, once you've got the software, how you can help you run your business. So we'll just go to another slide. So there's just a couple of key highlights about the actual FSB app. The very first one is that you'll see that the FSB app is only one of 7 Hmrc recognised software providers for both VAT and income tax. There's loads of software providers that provide it for VAT, but not so many for income tax. And Govinda did point out that there will be more coming on board. There absolutely will be. Also, the FSB app is free for small businesses with low transactions, and that's great, because if you're a small business, you might be an art gallery that has some very high purchase products, low volume selling, but ultimately, why would you want to go on software which is geared up for dealing with a lot more transactions, and you're having to pay for that? Whereas with the FSB app, if you do have a low number of transactions, there is a free plan for you to use. If you use more transactions, that's absolutely fine. You can move on to one of the price plans, which starts at just £5 a month. And if you go to, I think the highest price plan is £12 a month, and that plan you have unlimited number of transactions. Now that price is a discounted price. I think it's nearly 50%. If you are an FSB member, then great, you'll get that reduced price. The FSB app also provides both record keeping and bridging functionality. They'll say whether they're digital record keeping or they're bridging only. So the FSB app is simple to use, has many features. Hopefully you'll see that in a few minutes. The FSB app works on your PC, phone and tablet, so you can have it working on your PC, and you can also have it working on your phone and tablet concurrently. It won't just work on one device. FSB app does use cloud technology, so there's no desktop installation of the software onto your PC, which is great, because that means any documents that you upload they're safely stored in the cloud. And finally, the FSB app is GDPR compliant. A lot of people today are more data privacy savvy, and they can actually ask for requests from suppliers or customers that ask for, what information do you actually hold about me on your application. And if you're business and you receive such a request, it could be quite onerous to actually go and fetch all that information and reply back. Whereas the FSB app does that at a click of a button, and hopefully we'll see that in a bit. So hopefully that gives you a couple of sort of key highlights of the app. So what I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to introduce to you, you may have seen this chap a second ago. This is Peter, and so what I'm going to do with Peter today is we're actually going to submit his first Mtd return, but we can actually show as well how he uses the software to do that. So how he does his record keeping, and also more importantly, how he runs his business with the software. So first thing is that Peter actually hasn't signed up for Mtd yet. So that's really simple. So he goes into Google, puts in Hmrc, sign up for Mtd. And basically this page is the Hmrc's web page. It just explains how to sign up. So he would just click the sign up now. The most important thing to remember, I think, is that it can take up to 3 days for you to actually get confirmation that you've signed up to Mtd, and you actually have to wait for that before you can actually sign to submit your first Mtd return. So just bear that in mind in terms of timing. And I'll quickly go through that. Basically, the questions are really easy. They're basically just to remind you that the software you're using must be compatible with Mtd, and Rhino is. It's on the list, as you saw. So that's absolutely no problem. So you just click on yes, and it just again reminds you that are you using software that can connect to Hmrc? Absolutely fine. But if you was to click on spreadsheets, then basically the Hmrc says, well, you're really looking for bridging software. So if you go into the list, look for bridging software. So as I mentioned, the FSB app is on that list and does bridging. And then, but in Peter's case, well, if you went, I use neither, you're going to get told off effectively. You're going to get asked to go back and actually get a piece of software that does connect with Hmrc. So you really only allowed these two options. So if you click on I use accounting, which Peter does, then he's all good to go. He knows his software can connect with Hmrc. So now when you click sign up, he goes to his government gateway ID, he puts all that in. Obviously I can't do that, Peter doesn't exist. But once he's gone into that page, you would then be asked for things like his national insurance numbers, some other pieces of information. Once he's done that, then he'll get that letter to say he's signed up to Mtd. So as he's an FSB member, he would just simply go to the Making Tax Digital page in FSB, and then he would scroll down, and this is where you'd actually get the software. So you can get the desktop version by clicking this link, or you could click on the if you want to put it on your Apple phone, you can click this link, or if you're on an Android phone, you click on this link. So for the purpose of this demonstration, we'll just go into the desktop version. And you can see I've cheated here. I've actually set up an account already, but if you're setting up a new account, you just click down here and then you'll get an email. Just click on the email and then you'll get a login to go, a password to log into the app. So let's just do that. So we're logging in. What we've got here is our financial dashboard. So as your income progresses through the year, it will calculate effectively your yearly forecast and income. Likewise, you've got a yearly forecast on your trading, effectively your profit, the difference between your income and your costs. And then on the left here, we've got our menu, which shows how to enter an invoice or how to enter expense, our contacts. So when we enter an invoice, you need to allocate that to a customer. When you enter an expense, you need to enter that against the supplier. So you'll put your contacts information here. Then you obviously got your VAT. So when you come to do your VAT submission, you click here, and also your income tax self-assessment here. So these are really the core elements you need to effectively do a VAT submission. There's loads more menu options and they're all switched off. But if you want to have more, there's more things such as there's quotes, estimates, you could add that onto the list as well. So there's much more functionality than what's already been shown. So, and then finally, what we've got here, if you need any help or support, if you need to email the team, you can click on this link, or you can ask the frequently asked questions. if you want help actually on the particular function, so on invoicing, if you click on this link here, you'll get an actual video which tells you, if you click on play, it will explain how to enter an invoice, and each of these options have a video associated to them. So there's loads of help that you can get here, and probably the most key thing I need to call out is that when you first log into Rhino, you're in what we call a play account, and what that means is that this is software you've never used before, and you might just want to sort of have a feel around, just put some dummy data in, see what an invoice looks like before you actually email it to a client. Then you can do all of that in the play area. You know you're not going to break anything. It's not your real business data. So you may feel quite confident that you go, no, I know how to enter an invoice and expense, no problem for me. I don't want to use play, so I'm just going to go and click upgrade for free. And you get the option, when you do upgrade, you get the option to which plan you want to move to. So we mentioned about those businesses with a low transaction volume. You can see here, if you're on free, then you've got up to 30 invoices and 30 expenses you can enter. If you know you're going to have more than that, then you can move to 100 transaction limit. And if you want no limit whatsoever, then you can move straight to the basic version. You have no limits whatsoever. So Peter is now sitting in his office, and he gets a telephone call, and it's from Mrs. Jackson, and she needs a new boiler. So we enter. What Peter does is he enters details of Mrs. Jackson. It's a mobile number, address. So he calls Worcester Bosch, and they send him over a tax invoice, which he receives by email. And then Peter now uses the digital record keeping functionality to enter that into his Rhino app. So he goes into expenses, and you can see I've filled in already just the supplier, so it's Worcester Bosch. And I'm just going to change the value, put the VAT amount, hit save. And the key thing as well, you notice as well, we also stored that invoice in the system. So I'm never going to lose that copy, that piece of paper. It's there now, it's in the system, it's against my transaction. So I've got an audit trail linking the invoice to the transaction. So now Pete has to go and do the job itself. So whilst he's round there, he realizes he needs to go to Screwfix and get some extra parts. Got my phone now, and I'm going to click. I'm going to take a photograph of the receipt. Take photo. And use it. Save. And that should now be there. So we go back into our Rhino app. Just go refresh. That should be this one. If I click on, there you go. That's the receipt I just took a picture of. So you can see, whilst you're on the move, you can capture all your receipts. And this is great for Peter, because he knows he always, when he comes to do his VAT return, there's expenses that he could have claimed for, but he's lost the receipt. So now he knows if he takes the picture whilst he's on the move, he's never going to lose those receipts and miss those expenses. So that's great for him. Okay, so he's done the job. So obviously what he needs to now do is actually invoice for the work. So he goes into the invoicing, and he creates the invoice. So he puts the invoice date, it's due on the 15th, who the customer was, and then he just puts in the invoice amount. So I'll just add that now. It gets them calculated. And if I click save, we can now see we've now got the option to either send that invoice, or we can just view it first before we send it. I've checked the invoice, all looks good. Peter's actually put his own logo in there, so that appears nicely on his invoice. That all looks fine. So he's now going to just finalize it. And, but that will now be, if I click email, you will now email that to Mrs. Jackson if we weren't in place. So she'd now receive that email, and then obviously we'd be looking for her to pay it. So in terms of payment, if we look here, we can see that this particular invoice is due for payment. In fact, it should appear as overdue. Yes, it is 8th of June. So this is where you can actually track all of your payments that you're outstanding from your customers. And if there's a lot here, you may even want to put them on print them on a report, click the quick report, and you could actually list them all on a report and take that, print it off somewhere and go through chasing up all your customers for the payments that are due. That show, this is where you do your payment tracking. And then Mrs. Jackson, once she's paid that invoice, you just click money in and she's paid the full amount. She paid it by backs. So, and now that's paid. You can see how this is now building up. So there was our expense for the purchase of the boiler. There was our SAL. And now you can start seeing what the yearly forecast looks like it would be if we go all the way to March 2022. Now, obviously, we're in the middle of a financial year. So if we were starting in a new financial year, this would be a lot more accurate. So of course, it will start tracking more accurately from the 1st of April. So that's our dashboard. And then obviously, we're now ready to submit our VAT. So when we come to do our VAT, when we first go into the VAT page, what it will happen is that we'll get connected to Hmrc, and then there'll be a page, there'll be a message that comes up from Hmrc that says, are you allowing Rhino software to connect to your Mtd account? You would just click yes, click approve, and then you'd come back to this page, and then you're all ready to do your submission. So the information that's being displayed here is effectively what, if you've got any outstanding amounts that are due to Hmrc, that would be shown here, and any previous Mtd submissions you've made, they would be listed down here. So if I click submit now, what's going on behind the scenes is it's now calculating using what we've entered in the invoicing and the expenses. It's now adding that all up to automatically fill in our VAT return. So we don't have to calculate ourselves anymore. The software will do that for us. And then we check those numbers, and if we're happy with them, we would just click declaration, and then we'd then click finalize process. And then all of those numbers would actually be sent over to Hmrc and recorded on their system. So that shows you how easy it is with record keeping. Now, I did mention that Peter was using Excel spreadsheets. So let's say Peter was still wanting to use the software to send just the Excel version, so effectively use the bridging functionality. Then what he would do is click on the download button, and that would download the template. So effectively, you would download this template, which is all zeros for now. But all Peter would need to do is take his existing spreadsheet that he's got. So this is what it would look like if he was on Excel. And then he would just need to insert that one spreadsheet into that worksheet, sorry, into the same spreadsheet that he's got. And he just populates those values using the number from his own worksheet. So I should click the upload. So you'll see all of those numbers that came from the spreadsheet all in the adjustment boxes. And again, you check those numbers, click the declaration, and then hit the finalize process. It is easy to sign up to Mtd, very easy to capture your invoices, your expenses. It's great for capturing your actual documents. So you've got a great audit trail. So if there's ever an audit from Hmrc, you can literally pull up any transaction, show them the actual backing document. If you want to use bridging, you can carry on using bridging. There's loads more features as well, which I can't show you because I don't have enough time. On our main web page, I didn't cover this, but if you did want to find out more about the features of the product, there's the features then, and this goes for all the different things like project management, time tracking, or if you wanted to know more how to sign up for Mtd, so the stuff I've just covered, that's all in our Mtd menu. This training support, so you may think, well, I'd need to know a little bit more about certain aspects of the software. So we'd love to sort of meet with you if you wanted to know more. So just pick a slot, and there's you speak directly there with the team. So just pick a time slot there. Or if you feel like that, you'd rather just join a group training session, we also have a daily slot which you can join every day, Monday to Friday. And there's also some self-service support as well. So again, if you need, we talked about that, about some of the videos. Oh, and I forgot to mention the important point. Once you're in the app, let me just go back into the app. There is a little chat icon down there. So if you ever get stuck on the way, you just click on that and you'll actually talk to someone in the FSB and you can help you out or redirect your question to the Rhino team. So Dion, I think that's it for me. Sorry for running over. Hopefully everyone could get a good insight of the software.
Thank you, Rhys. And finally, last but not least, I'm going to hand you over to Darren from the FSB.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yes, my name's Darren Park. I am the Senior Policy Advisor for Finance, Tax and Economic Policies at FSB, and was the lead author on the A Duty to Reform tax report that we wrote back in September, October time, and was also mentioned a few times in the First Voice magazine that Rhys mentioned earlier. Our general view at FSB is that we are supportive of making tax digital. We do very much view it as updating the tax system into kind of a modern framework. Digitalized way is a way of the 21st century. However, this isn't necessarily going to happen without its hiccups, and there have been substantial issues with the implementation of MTD over the kind of past 2 years or so. One of the big things we view MTD as over the long term, I suppose, helping is the fact that small businesses are quite inundated with how much time they end up spending on tax returns. So from our survey last year, we found that the average small business spends about 52 hours a year, equivalent to just over a working week on completing tax liabilities at a cost of around £4,100. So that is the cost of subscriptions, accountants and so on, not the actual tax itself. So if MTD can provide these benefits to reduce and streamline tax, so less time is spent, less money is spent, and more resources can be put into kind of productive activities for small businesses themselves, it'll be vastly beneficial. At the moment, from our survey as well, we found that 70% of all of our members are currently MTD registered. So that is about 60% are there because they are above the £85,000 threshold, and about 11% were done voluntarily. This was surveyed in the summertime last year, so I imagine, given the fact we're approaching the 2022 new deadline for all VAT registered businesses, that number is probably going to be increasing quite significantly, and obviously will do once we pass April. One of the biggest issues that we found with MTD from talking to small businesses is the cost element. It's the idea that many small businesses, as I guess Rhys would have alluded to as well, currently have their one-off paid for software or Excel sheets, and it's relatively cheap to be using to file their taxes. The issue with cost is the fact that it is new software subscriptions that they're going to have to pay for. But there's also this fear within small businesses broadly that the costs aren't going to stop. So that meaning when they join for MTD, VAT, income tax the following 2 years, and so on and so forth, once they get looped into this MTD's kind of software cycle, there's very little at the moment, it seems, to be preventing software providers to just raise costs unexpectedly, and very little alternatives for them to turn to if that is the case. So that was one of the recommendations we put forward in our report, was for the government to kind of put a check on this, in the sense of either using a CMA market assessment or just regular kind of looks at the market pricing to see that it is not going down a rent-seeking behavior. The other thing as well is, I think this is probably more because it's transitionary than necessarily the feature of MTD, but we found that small businesses are not currently viewing MTD as providing the benefits of which they expected it to. So the kind of three pillars that MTD for VAT was meant to improve was cash flow, streamline the efficiency, and basically we found that small businesses overall disagreed that their businesses were receiving the benefits along these lines. Cash flow wasn't improving, tax wasn't being simplified, and their efficiency in terms of completing the tax liabilities weren't decreasing either. But again, I do think part of this is because it's a transitionary nature. It's relatively early on the timeline of MTD, and as the software improves, as companies and businesses start adopting MTD more fully, get more accustomed to it, it is likely they will start seeing these benefits. And this is something we at FSB are talking to government about semi-regularly, is that the benefits need to happen. If MTD is going to just be a digitalization of the tax system without providing benefits, it's missing a massive benchmark in which it's meant to approve. The final thing we've been working with government and mentioning as well, and it's something we put into our report, is we view MTD as a big opportunity to fix kind of the gap in usage of tax reliefs. We strongly believe at FSB that small businesses and all businesses should pay their fair tax liabilities. But equally, on the same note, given the fact that they pay the liabilities, they should receive all the reliefs they are entitled to. There is a big underusage of tax reliefs among the small business communities. So when we surveyed, the tax relief that had the most knowledge of across the small businesses was the business rate relief, but only, again, that was about 64% of small businesses said they were aware of it. So that's still a third of businesses that just weren't aware of this biggest relief. But this falls off a cliff in terms of you go down the different reliefs. For example, the employment allowance, again, very, very important, and will be very important with the national insurance increase in April. Less than half, I think it's about 44% or so, of small businesses said they were aware of it. We view MTD, given the fact that it's reliant on this tax data you're inputting, as a way in which software providers could provide a nudge in terms of, have you thought about using this tax relief? Are you aware of this tax relief? And it provides just another way for small businesses to receive what is effectively they are entitled to, if they are entitled to these reliefs. And because it's your personal data, we also view that this could be a good way of targeting the reliefs to the small businesses in an efficient way. But overall, we at FSB are supportive of making tax digital. We do view it as the future of tax, the digitalized nature and the movement towards a digitalized tax system. But there are hiccups in the road that will need to be corrected, and we will work with Hmrc software providers like Rhino to ensure that small businesses can and do get the best outcome they can. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. But if I could start with the questions that have been submitted, and the first few are for Govinda at Hmrc. So a couple of questions that all sort of fall into the same bracket. How is this different from the usual filling in VAT online using the Hmrc website?
So making tax digital for VAT, there are a number of requirements, and I think that Therese actually covered some of those as well in his presentation. So in terms of how is this different, for VAT, you would need to choose Mtd compatible software, start keeping digital records, and then submit your return to Hmrc through that compatible software, Mtd compatible software.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that you can't use the existing portal. If you're still using the existing portal, that won't be an option, will it, Govinda?
No, but I would encourage people who are using current software, if indeed they are, to actually check with their software provider and see what their plans are in terms of moving towards MTD.
Yeah. So the next question is there any free software for MTD these days? Well, I think Rhys, you answered that question. If you've got very small number of transactions, 30 transactions, I think it is, your software's free. Yes? For FSB members.
Yes, that's right, Dion. I think there's a couple of questions coming in on the Q&A on that, on what that 30 limit is. Is it a year? Is it a month? It is actually a total limit. So once you've hit either 30 invoices or 30 expenses, whether that's in a year or a year and a half's time or in a month's time, that's when you'll be notified that you actually need to upgrade to the next plan, which gives you 100 transactions again. And as soon as you hit the 100 limit, then you have to move on to the next plan.
Okay, thank you. So then the next question is, which software do you recommend?
Okay. Hmrc is unable to recommend any particular software. The reason for that is because the needs of individual businesses and individuals themselves are going to be vast and varied. So we do have, as I mentioned earlier, over 500 products available to choose from on our software choices page on gov.uk. That's for Mtd for VAT. And we are developing the number of products available for Mtd income tax self-assessment and building that up towards 2024 when the mandation comes live for that.
Yeah, and I would say if you've got an accountant, speak to your accountant, because they will generally have a preferred package, because that's what they will specialise using in. I do use Xero. I do recommend Xero personally. That's what I encourage my clients to use. But there are a lot of other software out there. So it's what your accountant is comfortable with and is experienced and knowledgeable with. So then we've got, once again, this is similar, any recommended free software for small non-VAT registered sole traders. I think we come back to Rhino, Hmrc aren't able to recommend. Then it says, currently I pay my accountants to submit my VAT returns digitally. Can I do this when income tax is digitised as well?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we recognise the importance of having an agent or an accountant to help and support businesses to submit their taxes and get it right as well. So yes, absolutely, we can still use that journey. And again, as you said, Dion, do speak to your agent and do speak to them in terms of any software that they're using as well. So that's all part of the journey, to have a combined journey both for businesses and their agents or accountants.
And the next question is, does the MTD threshold include DWP income, so that's pension income?
So no, it doesn't. The MTD Making Tax Digital threshold for income tax self-assessment, it's based on those receiving income from a self-employment, or if they're a landlord. So yeah, it's those two incomes that are actually in scope for MTD ITSA at the moment. And apologies for using abbreviations.
Next question, one-man band limited company on the flat rate scheme for VAT, only an average of 15 payments each quarter. In this situation, what's the minimum I need to do digitally to match my current very simple arrangement?
So VAT simple arrangements, again, the three steps that I mentioned earlier, you know, choosing MTD Making Tax Digital compatible software, using the software choices page that we have, keeping digital records through that MTD compatible software, and then submitting your returns through that compatible software. So those are the three steps that are mandatory, that are legally required. So that's the minimum that any business needs to do.
But once again, do your research, and I think some of them do offer a flat rate scheme through VAT as well. Which software is compatible with MTD and the Co-op FSB business account? I've got a Co-op FSB business account, so I can tell you, if you can get the bank feeds through on that, and any software that offers bank feeds will work with your Co-op FSB accounts. My financial year starts in November. I understand MTD is compulsory from the 1st of April. My next VAT period is February to April 22. So must I submit that VAT return under MTD?
Not that particular VAT return. So MTD for VAT is mandatory from April 22 for the first quarter running from April. So for this particular scenario that's described, it'll be the May, June, July return that will need to be submitted through MTD.
Okay. And how are Hmrc going to inform / help disabled people with MTD? And obviously disabled can cover a whole gamut of issues, whether that's physical disabilities, sight disabilities, hearing disabilities. How's Hmrc helping there?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, and it's a topic that's dear to my heart. So Hmrc's approach is to be inclusive wherever it can be. So in order to do that, we are working with software providers to make sure there's accessible software available. as one of our service conditions. Also, we're looking at and delivering additional support through our telephony and online services. We're also working with external partners, for instance, TaxAid, to look at what kind of support Hmrc can give those people that are being supported by companies and organisations like TaxAid. What can we do to help that happen? And ultimately, we recognise that for some people, going online and being digital isn't going to work for them. So we do have an exemptions process as well. So if you really can't do it, then I suggest that you have a look online if you can, or ring up the helpline and ask to complete one of the application forms for an exemption. There are limitations to that. There are strict criteria, but we do have that support in place.
So there's a couple of questions about software. So somebody said, is there a time limit on using bridging software? So they're using Vital Tax to file VAT returns. Is bridging software going to be permitted for the foreseeable future? Or is there a cut-off point for this?
Yeah, there isn't that I'm aware of. I don't think there is a cut-off for bridging software at the moment, because we recognise the fact that it is very useful for some businesses and the way they report their taxes. So we need to make sure that we keep that facility in place. However, there is a but to this. The benefits that can be realised are limited in bridging software. You can receive more benefits, up-to-date information, prompts and nudges in your software if it's cloud-based software. But the options are there to choose either.
The question for Rhino, will your app provide a free solution without, so I only want a free solution that enables me to take my information from Excel and upload it to Hmrc. So will your app continue to allow me to use this solution without forcing me to use all the other options? Does the uploading count towards the transaction limit?
Hi Dion, it's Eugene here.
Hello, Eugene.
I'm the CEO of Rhino. So what we've done is we've introduced a free version of the software, and the purpose of the free version is, and we've made it clear on our website, it's for startups, people who can't afford to invest too much in software. But it's also for people who want to experience the software before they buy. So the good news is you don't have to use the invoicing in our system. You don't have to use the expenses. You can just use the bridging feature, and you can even switch off all the other features to make it ultra simple. And that's easy enough to do. We do limit the number of submissions in the free edition to 1. So this allows someone to go in and experience it and make sure they're happy with it. And then after that, you would need to upgrade to the micro edition, and the micro edition does permit unlimited submissions. And that's, if you're an FSB member, you get a 50% discount, so it's £5 plus VAT per month. So I think that's quite important. I think the other thing which is quite interesting, just come back to Govinder's point, we do have customers using a hybrid option. So and Reece sort of demonstrated it quite well in the presentation. We have businesses that record or download they've got quite complex VAT requirements, and they need to manage it on a spreadsheet, and that's well recognized by Hmrc as well. So they do have their income recorded on the bridging software, but they actually record some of their expenses in our system. So it does mean that our system will populate your expense information, and the bridging software can populate your income and so on. So that's quite a cool feature, and it's one of the reasons we actually integrated into both. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you. I think we better call it a day at that. Thank you for everybody coming along to the session. I'd like to thank Govinda, Eugene, Reese and Darren for their contributions. Thank you everybody for attending. Have a great rest of the day and week, and we look forward to seeing you at a future FSB event.